He called her a mistake, shamed her before the entire pack. 3 years later, his billion-dollar empire trembles when two little voices whisper, "Mommy." Now the alpha who broke her heart will learn the truth he was never meant to forget. She was never his mistake. She was his destiny. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. It truly amazes me how far our community reaches around the world. All right, now let's begin. Rain hammered the Silvercrest mansion like angry fingers drumming against stone. Lightning slashed across the sky, illuminating the glass walls and marble floors of the ballroom where the entire elite pack had gathered. Golden chandeliers swayed and laughter froze in midair as Lucien Thorne, alpha of Silvercrest, billionaire heir to Thorne Industries, spoke the words that would shatter a heart forever. She was a mistake. The sentence hung in the air, cold and merciless. Mara stood at the bottom of the staircase, drenched and trembling, her red dress clinging to her like a wound. Her long, dark hair stuck to her cheeks, framing eyes swollen from tears she'd been too proud to shed. Around her, whispers rose like a tide, mocking, cruel, curious. Her wolf whimpered inside her chest, wounded. He didn't mean that, she tried to convince herself, but Lucien's eyes, those storm gray eyes that once looked at her like she hung the moon, were empty now. He stood tall in his tailored black suit, the perfect alpha, strong, untouchable, cruel. The people watching didn't know that only hours ago, his hands had still been tangled in her hair, his lips whispering her name like a vow. Now, he wouldn't even look at her. Mara took a shaky breath, rain dripping from her lashes. "You don't mean that," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of humiliation. Lucien's jaw clenched. His beta, Darius, glanced at him with unease. But the alpha turned away, his voice cutting through her heart one final time. "Leave before I make you." And just like that, her world ended. The guests parted as she ran, barefoot, the marble cold against her feet, the thunder outside echoing her heartbeat. The scent of roses and wine turned bitter in her nose. Cameras flashed, wolves disguised as journalists, hungry for a scandal. She covered her face with trembling hands, pushing through the heavy doors into the storm. The moment she hit the rain, it felt like the sky itself pitied her. The cold soaked through her bones, but she didn't stop. Her mind replayed his voice on a loop. A mistake, a mistake, a mistake. Each repetition cut deeper. She stumbled through the gravel driveway, clutching her stomach as if she could hold herself together. Inside, a faint pulse answered. She froze. Her wolf stirred weakly. "You're not alone," it whispered. "Protect them." Lightning tore the sky open again, and in that flash, she saw her reflection in the puddle beneath her, mud-streaked, mascara running, eyes glowing faintly gold, the wolf's mark. She didn't know how long she stood there before headlights slashed through the rain. A sleek black car screeched to a stop. Darius, Lucien's beta, stepped out, his face pale. "Mara, get in, please." She shook her head, backing away. "Tell your alpha he got what he wanted. I'm gone." "Mara, Cut him off. You've done enough." And then she disappeared into the woods, the storm swallowing her whole. By dawn, the mansion was quiet. The storm had passed, but the damage lingered like a ghost. Lucien stood by the window of his study, shirt undone, the top button of his suit lying forgotten on the floor. His reflection looked like a stranger. He could still smell her, The scent of wild jasmine and rainwater clung to him like a memory he couldn't shake. But he told himself he'd done the right thing. He had to. The council had been clear. No human-born wolf could ever be Louna of Silvercrest. His bond with Mara was a mistake of the heart, a weakness. And weakness, in his world, meant death. Still, her eyes haunted him. The way she had looked at him in that moment, not broken, but betrayed, like she'd seen the truth of him. Alpha, Darius's voice came from the door, hesitant. The press is everywhere. They want a statement. Lucien didn't turn. Tell them she's gone, and that's all they need to know. Yes, Alpha. The door closed quietly. The silence that followed was heavy. Lucien's hands trembled slightly as he pressed his palm against the cold glass. The rain had stopped, but inside him, the storm hadn't. His wolf growled low, a sound of regret, of longing. He ignored it. He had to. But somewhere, deep in the woods, the mate he'd rejected was clutching a secret he'd never be ready for. Mara ran until her legs gave out. She collapsed near the border of Silvercrest, the trees closing in like silent witnesses. The forest smelled of pine and wet earth. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her instincts screamed that she didn't stop. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, soft but barely rounded, but alive. The truth hit her like another lightning strike. She was carrying his child. Her breath hitched, tears mixed with rain. "No, not now," she whispered, but even as she said it, warmth spread from her center, a pulse that wasn't hers alone. The wolf within her stirred again, protective, fierce. Then you live. For them. Mara crawled under an old oak tree, her soaked dress clinging to her skin. The night around her hummed with danger, howls in the distance, rival scents carried by the wind. But she didn't care. She was no longer fighting for Lucien's love. She was fighting for survival. She wiped her face, staring towards the horizon. "You said I was a mistake," she whispered to the darkness. "Then watch what your mistake becomes." Somewhere far behind her, the first rays of morning touched the Silvercrest estate, gilding its windows in gold. Inside, Lucien poured himself a drink. He couldn't swallow. Neither knew it yet, but that storm had just rewritten their destinies. Days later, word spread across the werewolf territories. Mara Vale, the Alpha's rumored mistress, had vanished without a trace. Some said she ran. Others whispered she died. Lucien didn't correct them. He buried himself in work, in deals, in boardrooms filled with men who bowed to his money and feared his power. But when the moon rose each night, his wolf stirred restlessly. Guilt burned behind his ribs. He told himself she'd been nothing but a reckless choice. But then, why do every scent of jasmine twist his chest like a knife? Months passed. Silvercrest moved on. But in a quiet coastal town miles away, a woman with haunted eyes and a growing belly walked the shoreline at dawn. Her hands rested protectively over her stomach as the waves kissed her feet. She whispered softly to the life within her, "You will never need him. You'll have me, both of you." And when she said both, the wind seemed to answer. 2 heartbeats flutter beneath her touch. Twin souls, twin heirs. Mara smiled faintly through her tears, the rising sun painting her face in gold. "You hear that?" she murmured. "He said I was a mistake." She looked out over the endless ocean, voice trembling with quiet defiance. "Let's prove him wrong." 3 years earlier, before the humiliation, before the storm, Maravale was just another nameless healer in the Silvercrest pack. She worked quietly at the pack's infirmary, a low wooden cabin that smelled of herbs, rain, and fading hope. Most wolves never noticed her. She preferred it that way. But that morning changed everything. A convoy of sleek black SUVs rolled into the clearing, engines humming like beasts. Soldiers in gray uniforms stepped out, forming a perimeter. Then he appeared, Lucien Thorne, the Alpha himself. His presence shifted the air, commanding silence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of a coming storm. Power radiated from him like heat. Mara froze mid-step, clutching a tray of herbs. The stories didn't do him justice. He was both terrifying and beautiful, like the sky before lightning struck. Lucien's beta, Darius, introduced him to the healers. "The Alpha's been injured," he said quietly, his tone tight. "He doesn't want word spreading." Injured? The mighty Lucien Thorne? Mara's eyes flicked to his left arm, blood seeping through the torn sleeve of his suit. Without thinking, she moved forward. "I'll take care of it." He looked at her then, really looked. The world fell away. His scent, smoke and pine, hit her like gravity. Something deep inside her wolf stirred, uncertain, trembling. Lucien's gaze softened for half a second, then hardened again. "Do it quickly." She didn't know it yet, but that moment, his first wound, her first touch, was where their story began to burn. Mara worked in silence, pressing gauze to the gash along his forearm. His skin was warm beneath her fingertips, pulsing with restrained power. The silence between them was thick, almost alive. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. Lucien's lips twitched. "I've had worse." "You shouldn't have let it get this deep." He raised a brow. "And you're an expert on alpha injuries now." She met his gaze without flinching. "I'm an expert on what happens when they think they're invincible." For a heartbeat, he said nothing. Then unexpectedly, he laughed. A low, rough sound that didn't belong in a man so composed. Darius blinked in surprise. Lucien looked at Mara again, his tone quieter. "What's your name?" "Mara." He repeated it under his breath, like testing the sound. "Maravale." Something flickered in his eyes. Interest. Recognition? She couldn't tell. When she finished wrapping the wound, he stood, towering over her. "You've got steady hands," he said. "Most healers shake around me." "Maybe you just don't scare me," she replied. He tilted his head slightly, amused. "Then you should." That night, long after he left, Mara's hands still tingled with the warmth of his skin. Her wolf paced restlessly inside her. She tried to push the feeling away, but the more she tried to forget, the deeper it settled. In the weeks that followed, Lucien kept returning to the infirmary, always with some excuse, an inspection, a meeting, a wound that didn't need healing. He asked questions about herbs, about the land, about her. Each time his visits grew longer. The pack started whispering. The Alpha spending time with the healer? She's not even from a pure bloodline. She won't last long. Mara ignored them. She learned long ago that silence was its own kind of power. One evening, he arrived after sunset. The room glowed with candlelight. "You're working late," he said, voice low. "I always do," she answered, not looking up. He stepped closer. "You should be alone out here. The woods aren't safe after dark." She smirked faintly. "Neither are alphas." He laughed again, quieter this time, like he was surprised he could. Then more serious. "You don't fear me." "Should I?" He studied her, something unreadable in his gaze. "Everyone does." "I'm not everyone."
The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was electric. When he finally turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of something raw beneath his calm, a loneliness he hid behind dominance. That was the night she realized the alpha's power wasn't his strength. It was his isolation. By the time autumn arrived, Silvercrest was ablaze with color. Golden leaves fell like sparks around the packed grounds. And Mara often caught Lucien watching her from the balcony during training drills. Rumors swirled faster than the wind. The council disapproved. An alpha needed a Luna of status, not a healer with no lineage. Still, he didn't stop visiting. One night, she found him waiting outside her cabin, his coat glistening with dew. "You should sleep," she murmured. "I can't." His voice was rougher than usual, like it scraped against something inside him. "Every time I close my eyes, I see you." Her heart stuttered. "You don't mean that." He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat from his skin. The bond, ancient, powerful, ignited between them. A thread of invisible energy pulled at their souls, binding wolf to wolf. Her breath caught. "Lucien, the council." "To hell with them," he growled. "You're mine." And under the blood-red moon, he kissed her, fierce, desperate, eternal. That night, the alpha broke his own law. That night, the healer became his heart's secret sin. After that, they lived between shadows and sunlight. By day, Lucien was the unshakable alpha, commanding, ruthless, untouchable. By night, he was hers. They met in hidden corners of the forest, in candlelit rooms where titles didn't matter. But secrets have a way of rotting in silence. The council began to suspect. His arranged fiancée, Celine of Blackfang Pack, returned from abroad. Her cold beauty stirred old alliances. She smiled sweetly when she met Mara, though her eyes gleamed with quiet threat. "So, you must be the healer everyone's whispering about." Such dedication. But you should know, the alpha doesn't keep toys for long. Mara said nothing. But that night when Lucien came to her, her hands trembled. "Tell me this isn't just temporary," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "You have my word." And though his voice was steady, the wind outside carried another truth. He didn't dare say aloud, because even as he held her, he knew the storm was already coming. The night of the blood moon came like a warning, red lights spilling across the forest, washing everything in shades of fire. The Silvercrest pack gathered on the cliffside for the ceremonial run, a sacred night when wolves shed their secrets beneath the moon. But for Lucien and Mara, this night held something far more dangerous. She stood among the crowd, her healer's cloak fluttering in the wind, trying to hide the tremor in her hands. Lucien was at the front, commanding, magnetic, untouchable. His gaze swept over the wolves, but when it reached her, the air shifted. Her heart tripped. He shouldn't look at her here, not with the council watching, not with Celine standing beside him, her perfect smile slicing like glass. But Lucien didn't look away. "Mara," his voice brushed her mind through the pack link, low and urgent. "Meet me after the run, where the river bends." She hesitated. "Lucien, it's too risky. Please." Her pulse quickened. She nodded once. The moment the ritual began and the pack shifted into their wolves, Mara slipped away under the cover of trees. The forest glowed under the crimson moonlight. The air was heavy with magic and hunger. She heard his footsteps before she saw him. Slow, deliberate, predatory. Lucien emerged from the shadows, his wolf form fading into human, barefoot, shirtless, his skin catching the moon's reflection like polished bronze. "Mara," he breathed, voice rough with restraint. "I can't keep pretending." Neither could she. He reached for her and the world stopped spinning. His hands cupped her face like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "I tried to stay away," he whispered, "but I end up here. You've ruined me." Her throat tightened. "You're the alpha. You can't." "I don't care what I can't do." His voice broke. "I've built empires, led armies, commanded wolves who would die for me. But you're the only one I'd die for." Her eyes burned. The moonlight painted him in fire and vulnerability, an alpha stripped of his armor. "Lucien," she whispered, trembling, "if anyone finds out." He silenced her with a kiss. Fierce, claiming, desperate. It wasn't gentle. It was the kind of kiss that left marks on the soul. Her fingers tangled in his hair, her wolf rising to meet his, energy crackling between them. When they finally pulled apart, the bond pulsed, bright, undeniable. The air itself shimmered as the mating link sealed, invisible threads tying them heart to heart. Lucien pressed his forehead to hers. "You're mine," he said, not as command, but as a confession. Her tears mixed with his breath. "Then promise me," she whispered, "if the world turns against me, you'll still choose me." He hesitated, just a heartbeat too long. Then softly, "I promise." Under the blood moon, he bound his fate to hers, and somewhere far above, the moon watched in silence, knowing promises made in fire always end in ashes. Days turned into stolen moments. They met in secret beneath the willow trees, between business meetings and full moons. In his arms, Mara found a world where rank didn't matter, where he wasn't the alpha and she wasn't a mistake. But the higher they climbed, the thinner the air became. The council began to question his absences. Celine's smile grew colder. Rumors whispered through the pack like venom. The alpha's distracted. He's losing control. Mara tried to ignore it, but fear crept in like frost. One evening, she found Lucien staring at the ocean from his balcony, a glass of bourbon in hand. "You're quiet," she said softly. He didn't turn. "They're watching me, Mara. The council, my investors, even my father's allies. They think I'm a weakness." Her chest tightened. "Then tell them I'm not." He exhaled slowly. "You don't understand. The alpha doesn't ask for respect. He keeps it through fear. If they think I've gone soft, then what am I to you?" she interrupted, voice shaking. Lucien turned, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not of her, but of himself. "You're everything I can't afford to lose," he whispered. But the truth lingered unspoken. Between them, he would have to choose. And when the bay came, neither of them would be ready for what that choice would cost. A week later, Silvercrest's annual Moon Gala arrived, a glittering event where the city's elite wolves paraded their wealth under diamond lights. Mara wasn't invited, but she came anyway, hidden in the crowd of servants. She told herself it was just to watch, just to make sure he was okay. But when she saw him on stage, his hand entwined with Celine's, her breath shattered. Cameras flashed as Lucien smiled for the world, a practice smile, cold and empty. A champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound cut through the music. Heads turned. For one split second, his eyes found hers across the room. Regret, pain, apology. Then he looked away. Celine leaned in, her lips brushing his ear, and the crowd erupted in applause as the alpha of Silvercrest kissed his fiancée. Mara's vision blurred. The air left her lungs. Every promise under the moon turned to dust. She stumbled backward, the world tilting around her, until the ballroom doors swung shut behind her and the night swallowed her whole. Outside, thunder rumbled far off in the mountains, a warning the pack would not hear until it was too late. Mara fled to the woods. Dress torn, eyes burning, the sense of betrayal clung to her like smoke. Her wolf howled within her, not in anger, but in heartbreak so deep it shook the stars. She collapsed near the river bend where they'd made their promise, clutching the silver locket he'd once given her. A simple thing, with no crest, only his initials carved inside. L.T. Under the moonlight, she whispered, "You promised." Her voice broke on the wind. No answer came. The water shimmered red with the reflection of the blood moon, ominous, almost alive. Her wolf stirred, whispering a single word, "Run." But she didn't, not yet. She looked up at the sky, tears cutting paths down her face. If I ever mean nothing to him, the moon itself will remember me. And somewhere far behind her, in the ballroom full of liars and laughter, Lucien's wolf howled, a sound of pain he couldn't hide. He didn't know it yet, but that night, the bond they had forged in love would soon be tested in fire, betrayal, and blood. And when the storm finally broke, neither of them would escape untouched.
The night after the Moon Gala, Silvercrest City was still glowing with gossip. Every magazine headline read the same. Alpha Lucien Thorne engaged to Celine Blackwood. The alliance that will change everything. Mara sat in her small apartment, the article open on her cracked phone screen, her trembling thumb hovering over the glowing image of them smiling for the press. His hand on Celine's waist, his lips near her ear, his ring glinting under the chandelier. She shut the phone off, the darkness of the screen showing her own reflection, eyes hollow, skin pale. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. She froze. No one ever came here. Another knock. "Mara?" The voice was smooth, elegant, sharp as silk. "Celine." Mara's blood ran cold. She opened the door halfway, her heart pounding. "What do you want?" Celine stood there in a white coat, every hair perfectly in place, smelling like power and roses. "To talk," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Alpha Lucien Thorne speaks highly of your talents. I wanted to thank you personally for knowing when to disappear." Mara's jaw tightened. "You don't scare me." "Oh, darling," Celine purred, stepping closer. "You should be terrified, because unlike you, I don't make promises. I make examples." Then she leaned in and whispered, "You have something that belongs to him. Return it, or I'll make sure the whole pack sees what kind of woman you really are." When the door slammed, Mara's hands were shaking. She didn't know how Celine knew about the locket, but one thing was certain. Celine wasn't here to share Lucien. She was here to destroy her. For the next week, Mara tried to vanish. She skipped the pack meetings, stopped answering Lucien's messages, and drowned herself in work at the clinic. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Celine's smirk, or worse, Lucien's silence. Until one night, he appeared at her door. The knock this time was different, desperate, uneven. When she opened it, he was drenched, rain dripping from his hair, his suit torn. "Mara," he rasped. "I had no choice." She turned away, refusing to meet his eyes. No choice to what? Lie to me in front of the world? He stepped inside, voice breaking. They forced the alliance. Celine's family controls half the pack's assets. If I didn't agree, we would have lost everything. Her laugh was hollow. "So you chose her for money." "I chose us," he snapped. "You think I care about a headline? I'm trying to protect you." "By pretending I don't exist?"
He took a shaky breath, eyes full of exhaustion. You think I wanted this? He lifted her hand, pressing it to his chest. Feel that. That's what you do to me. Even when I'm breaking, you're the only thing that still beats in here. Her tears fell, silent and furious. Then why do I feel like I'm the one bleeding? Lucien stepped back, guilt shadowing his face. Because I'm still learning how to love you without destroying you. And for the first time, Mara realized loving an alpha like him meant being torn between tenderness and war. Celine didn't stop. Within days, the whispers grew louder. Patients stopped coming to Mara's clinic. Notes appeared under her door. Homewrecker, Alpha's mistress, Omega trash. One afternoon, she found her shop window shattered, red blood paint splattered across the walls. Stay away from him. She fell to her knees, glass cutting into her palms, the sense of fear mixed with fury. By the time Lucien arrived, she was shaking. They're destroying my life, she shouted, and you're letting them. He looked around, jaw tight, rage barely contained. Who did this? You know who. He slammed his fist against the wall, the impact cracking the plaster. I told Celine to stay out of this. Mara laughed bitterly. And you think she listens to you? He turned toward her, eyes glowing faintly gold. I'll handle it. No, she said, voice steady despite her tears. You'll hide it, like you always do. Lucien froze. Mara stepped closer. You think you can protect both of us, but you can't. Every time you choose silence, she wins. He reached for her, but she stepped back. Lucien, if you want to save me, then stop pretending I'm your secret. Her voice cracked on the last word. He said nothing. And in that silence, the distance between them became a canyon that no amount of love could cross. Days later, Celine made her move publicly. At a press conference, she announced a new foundation, the Silver Crest Maternity Initiative, and named Mara Vance as a charitable beneficiary. The implication was clear. Within hours, gossip sites exploded. Alpha's mistress pregnant? Lucien's office went into lockdown. Investors demanded answers. The council called an emergency meeting. Mara sat alone on her clinic floor, staring at her shaking hands. The story wasn't true, not yet, but Celine had planted a poison no denial could cure. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Leave him. Celine's voice cooed through the line. Or the next story won't be a rumor. The call ended. Mara stood there, breath gone, pulse wild. She could leave tonight, disappear before things got worse. But as she looked around the wreckage of her life, she realized something terrifying. Running would make Celine right. So she did the one thing no one expected. She stayed. And for the first time in her life, Mara stopped being the woman who needed saving. She was going to fight. That night, the storm rolled in again, wild, electric, and merciless. Mara stood at her window, watching lightning claw across the horizon. In her hand was the silver locket. She opened it, staring at the initials inside, her jaw set. I believed in your promises. Now it's time to make my own. At the same moment, miles away, Lucien was at a council meeting, surrounded by wolves who wanted his downfall. Celine sat beside him, mask of innocence firmly in place. When the Alpha King asked if the rumors were true, Lucien's gaze flickered, just for a second, toward the door. Because Mara was standing there, soaked from the rain, defiant. Every head turned as she stepped into the chamber, lightning flashing behind her like a crown. If you're going to talk about me, Then say it to my face, she said, voice echoing through the marble hall. Lucien's heart stopped. Celine's smile cracked. And the entire pack realized the woman they tried to destroy wasn't the victim. She was the storm.
The council chamber fell silent, thunder rumbling beyond the tall glass walls. Every alpha, beta, and elder watched Mara step through the doors like a ghost risen from disgrace. Her eyes gleamed with defiance, her wet hair clinging to her neck, her red dress catching flashes of lightning like fire. Celine's jaw tightened. Lucien rose instinctively. "What are you doing here?" he whispered, a mix of fear and awe. Mara's voice was steady. "You wanted to talk about me? Let's do it while I'm still breathing." An elder frowned. "This is no place for an outsider." Mara took another step forward. "Funny. You all had no problem dragging my name through the mud outside of this room." A ripple of murmur spread. Celine smirked, playing innocent. "Mara, darling, no one meant any harm. You know how rumors—" "Stop pretending you didn't start them." Mara cut in sharply, her voice slicing through the tension. "You used me to control him, but I'm not your puppet, and he's not your prize." Lucien's fists clenched. "Enough." His command voice cracked through the air, silencing everyone. "Celine, you went too far." Celine's eyes glowed, a dangerous golden hue. "You're defending her after what she's done?" Lucien's reply came soft, trembling with truth. "The only mistake I ever made was believing you." Gasps filled the hall. Then the storm outside roared, windows rattled, lightning struck the courtyard, and every wolf's head turned toward the sound, because the scent of blood had just hit the air. Guards burst through the doors, their uniforms stained crimson. "Alpha! The Eastern Wing! Someone broke in!" Chaos erupted. Elders shouted. Lightning flickered. Lucien pushed past them, instincts flaring. "Stay here!" But Mara was already moving. "If someone's bleeding, I'm coming." They ran through corridors of glass and marble, their footsteps echoing against the thunder, the scent of wet stone mixed with iron, the unmistakable trace of a wounded wolf. They found him near the east balcony, a guard torn open, breathing shallowly. On the wall behind him, scrawled in blood, were the words, "Sins never sleep." Mara pressed her hands to the wound, her training taking over. "Hold pressure here," she whispered, her eyes scanning the pattern of the cuts. They weren't random, they were ritual. Lucien crouched beside her, jaw clenched. "This isn't a threat. It's a warning." "From who?" He hesitated. "Someone who should have been dead years ago." Their eyes met. She saw it then, the flicker of real fear in his face, the kind that no alpha could hide. "Lucien," she breathed. "Who did this?" His answer came like thunder itself. "My father." Mara froze. The Alpha King, believed dead for a decade, was alive, and judging by the scent in the air, he'd just come home. The Silvercrest Pack had long buried the story of the Alpha King's downfall. The world believed he died in exile, consumed by his own madness, but Lucien knew better. His father, Auric Thorn, had been cursed by the moon goddess himself for betraying his mate and spilling innocent blood under a blood moon. The curse didn't kill him, it made him something else, something feral. Now, it seemed, the curse had followed his son. Back in Lucien's private office, Mara cleaned the blood off her hands, trying to steady her breath. "If your father is alive, why come back now?" Lucien paced by the window. "Because the curse was passed through bloodlines. Every firstborn heir is bound by it. And the night I rejected you publicly—" He paused, voice breaking. "I felt it awaken." Mara blinked, realization dawning. "You're saying rejecting your true mate triggered the curse again?" He nodded once. "I thought pushing you away would protect you, but it damned us both." The rain outside intensified, streaking down the glass like tears. Mara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then we have to break it."
Lucien met her gaze, haunted but resolute. There's only one way to break the curse. How? He swallowed. The heir must choose between love or power. And before Mara could speak, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the mansion. Emergency lights flickered to life, weak, red, and trembling. The air buzzed with energy. Somewhere in the distance, glass shattered. Lucien grabbed Mara's wrist. Stay close. They moved through the hall, shadows stretching like claws. Every step echoed. Every heartbeat was loud. Then a voice. Mara. She froze. That wasn't Lucien's voice. It came from deeper in the dark, low and rasping like metal scraping against stone. Lucien's eyes glowed faintly silver. Don't answer it. But she couldn't help it. Who's there? Out of the shadow stepped a man she'd only seen in portraits, gray hair streaked with black, eyes burning gold. His smile was a wound. So, this is the girl who made my son weak? Mara's body go cold. Lucien stepped in front of her, growling, Stay away from her. Eric tilted his head. Still protecting mistakes, I see. Lucien's control snapped. She's not a mistake. The air rippled with power as two alphas faced each other, one cursed, one torn between blood and love. Prove it. Kill me and free yourself. Lightning flashed, and the storm outside screamed. The world exploded in light and fury. Lucien lunged, claws flashing, meeting his father's blow with a force that cracked marble and shook the walls. Power collided, ancient and raw. The storm outside mirrored their rage, every bolt lighting up the blood on their hands. Mara screamed his name, trying to reach him, but an invisible force threw her back. The curse's energy burned through the air like wildfire. Eric laughed through the chaos. You can't kill me, boy. You are me. Lucien's claws trembled inches from his father's throat. I'll never be you. Then watch her die like your mother did. The words shattered something inside Lucien. With the roar that shook the mansion, he struck. But before the final blow landed, Eric vanished in a blast of black smoke, leaving behind the scent of burnt iron. The silence that followed was deafening. Lucien collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. Mara crawled to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders, both trembling. He's not gone, she whispered. Lucien nodded hauntedly. No, but now he knows what I'm willing to fight for. Outside, the storm began to fade, but inside them both, something far more dangerous had awakened. The truth that love wasn't just their bond, it was their weapon. The next morning, sunlight barely touched the Silvercrest mansion. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered. Broken glass glittered on the marble floors. Scorch marks trailed across the walls. The air smelled of smoke and iron. Mara woke on the couch in Lucien's private office, her head resting against his shoulder. For a moment, it felt like peace, until she saw the claw marks along his arm, already half healed, but still pulsing faintly black. Lucien, she whispered, touching the wound. The skin burned cold beneath her fingers. He stirred, grimacing. It's nothing. It's the curse, isn't it? He didn't answer. His silence told her everything. Mara stood, pacing. You said it was passed down through bloodlines, that it takes something from each heir. What did it take from you? Lucien looked up, eyes shadowed with pain. Control. Her breath caught. He continued softly. Every generation, the curse feeds on what makes us human. My father lost his soul. I'm losing my restraint. The longer it stays unbroken, the closer I get to becoming what he is. Mara knelt beside him, heart pounding. Then we break it, now. Lucien's gaze softened with something like sorrow. To break it, Mara, I need the blood of my true mate.
Then take it. He shook his head slowly. You don't understand. It requires a bond sealed by life and death. If I'm wrong, if you're not truly my mate, it'll kill you. The words hung between them like a blade. Mara swallowed hard. Then I guess we'll find out what love is really worth. They drove through the forest before dawn, the mist curling around the car like ghostly fingers. Lucien's jaw was set, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Mara sat beside him, clutching the locket tightly. Where are we going? She asked softly. To the ruins of the old moon temple. It's where my mother tried to end the curse. Mara's heart clenched. Did she succeed? Lucien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She died trying. The road turned to gravel, then dirt. The trees grew thicker, swallowing light. When they stopped, the temple loomed in front of them, a shattered monument of white stone and ivy, half buried in fog. Inside, the air was cold, humming with ancient energy. Symbols were carved into the walls, wolves, moons, and spirals of blood. Lucien knelt near the altar, brushing dust away from a stone bowl. The ritual requires 2 offerings, truth and trust. Mara frowned. What does that mean? He looked up at her, eyes shadowed with pain. It means I tell you something I've never told anyone, and you have to do the same. She hesitated, then nodded. Lucien exhaled slowly. The night I rejected you wasn't just about Celine. It was the night my father threatened to kill you if I claimed you. Mara's heart stopped. You knew? He said if I marked you, he'd rip your soul from your body before sunrise. I thought letting you go was saving you. She blinked through tears, realizing the cruel truth. Every scar she carried was the love that tried to protect her. Mara's confession came next, soft, trembling, but full of fire. The night you called me a mistake, I almost left Silvercrest for good. But I stayed because her voice broke. Because I felt something inside me, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Lucien's breath caught. You were. She nodded, tears spilling freely. Pregnant. But I lost them. Or I thought I did. I never told you because I couldn't bear to see pity in your eyes. Lucien's hand covered his mouth. Mara. It doesn't matter now, she whispered, wiping her face. That was my truth. Lucien stepped closer, his gaze softening, voice thick with emotion. Then you've already given me everything the ritual needs. He sliced his palm with a silver blade, the blood glowing faintly in the dim light. Now trust me. Mara hesitated for only a second before taking the blade. The metal bit into her skin, and her blood mixed with his in the stone bowl. The temple shuddered. Light spread through the carvings, illuminating the walls like veins of fire. The ground rumbled as ancient whispers filled the air. Lucien grabbed her hand, squeezing tight. No matter what happens, don't let go. Mara nodded, tears streaming. The blood began to boil in the bowl, bright red turning to silver. Then the floor cracked open beneath them. They fell through light, not air, not time, something else. When Mara opened her eyes, they stood in a moonlit field surrounded by spectral wolves. The wind hummed with energy, the stars pulsing overhead. A woman stepped forward from the pack, beautiful, regal, her eyes glowing like frost. The moon goddess, Lucien whispered, falling to one knee.
The goddess looked at Mara, not unkindly. You've come seeking to break the bond of blood. Do you understand the cost? Mara met her gaze without flinching. If it saves him, yes. The goddess turned to Lucien. You carry your father's curse because you repeated his sin. You called your mate a mistake. Lucien bowed his head, shame filling his chest. I know. Then prove your love by surrendering what he never could, your power. Lucien looked up, startled. My power is what keeps the pack safe. The goddess's voice was calm. Love cannot live where pride rules. Mara touched his arm gently. Let it go, Lucien, for us. He stared at her, torn between duty and devotion. Then, with a shuddering breath, he nodded. The wolves howled as silver light rose from his chest, pouring into the sky. His alpha mark faded. The goddess smiled softly. The curse is broken. But as the light faded, Lucien collapsed. Mara caught him before he hit the ground, his body limp, his breathing shallow. No, 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 Lucien, she cried, shaking him. The goddess's voice was gentle. Fear not. His power is gone, but his heart remains. You have freed him, not doomed him. Tears streamed down Mara's face as she pressed her forehead against his. Please, please come back to me. A faint heartbeat answered. Lucien stirred, eyes fluttering open, now a soft human hazel instead of silver. Mara? She laughed through her tears. You scared me half to death. He smiled weakly. Guess we're even. The goddess's form began to fade, her voice echoing on the wind. Remember, my children, love born of sacrifice cannot be broken by fate. Then she was gone. The field dissolved into light, and they were back in the ruined temple, the bowl cracked and empty. Mara helped Lucien stand. He looked lighter, free. He cupped her face gently. You saved me. No, we saved each other. Outside, dawn broke over the forest, golden light spilling through the shattered windows. For the first time in years, the air around them was still. The curse was gone. But neither of them yet knew the blood they spilt together had awakened something else. Something that months later would call her Mommy.
The morning sun bathed Silvercrest in soft gold, painting the world as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The curse was broken, or so they thought. Mara and Lucien returned to the city quietly, their bodies exhausted, but their hearts light for the first time in years. The storm had passed, or so it seemed. 3 months later, Mara stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at the small stick trembling in her hand. The second pink line stared back at her, clear and undeniable. Her knees went weak. No, she whispered. Tears blurred her vision. It's not possible. Lucien had lost his alpha powers. The curse had been sealed. The moon goddess herself had said their bond was free. But as her trembling hand touched her flat stomach, she felt it. A heartbeat. Too strong, too early, too unnatural. When Lucien arrived home, he found her sitting on the floor, the test beside her. He froze. Mara. She looked up at him with trembling lips. Lucien, I'm pregnant. For a long moment, silence swallowed them both. Then Lucien sank to his knees in front of her, his hand covering hers. His voice broke. That's impossible. I know, but it's real. Lucien's eyes flickered, not silver, but something else, something ancient. And for the briefest second, the room temperature dropped.
Mara saw it then, a faint shadow rippling behind him, the echo of a power she thought they'd destroyed. Her heart pounded. "Lucien, tell me I'm not seeing what I think I am." He looked up at her, voice shaking. "It's not the curse anymore. It's something worse." By the next morning, the signs were undeniable. Lucien's reflection flickered in mirrors. His shadow moved when he didn't. The pack could sense something wrong. Their alpha blood no longer called to them, but something darker lingered beneath his skin. Mara refused to let fear take root. She made him tea, pressed his hand when he trembled, and whispered, "We'll figure this out." But one night, as he slept beside her, she felt it. Something cold stirring in her womb, like a pulse, not her own. She woke gasping. The air smelled of ozone and iron. Lucien sat up instantly. "What's wrong?" She clutched her stomach. "It's them. The babies." Lucien froze. "Babies?" She nodded, tears streaming. "There's more than one heartbeat." He reached for her, but a surge of invisible energy threw him back against the wall. The lamps flickered, the windows rattled. Mara's voice broke. "Lucien, it's them. They're not just normal." Lucien got to his knees, blood dripping from his nose, eyes wide with horror. The curse didn't die. It transferred into them. The words felt like poison. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Two broken souls realizing their love had created something impossible. Then Mara whispered, voice trembling, "If the curse is inside them, then I won't let anyone take them. Not Celine, not the council, not even you." Lucien's gaze hardened, both love and terror burning in his chest. "Then we have to hide you." Because if the pack learned what had been born inside her womb, the Silvercrest line would burn before those children ever took a breath. They left that night under the cover of darkness. No goodbye, no warning. Lucien packed what little they could carry and drove into the wilderness, deep into the mountains beyond pack borders. The world outside Silvercrest was harsh and silent, blanketed in snow and secrets. They found shelter in an old cabin that once belonged to Lucien's mother, a place forgotten by time, surrounded by pine and shadow. Mara Specker nights curled beneath layers of blankets, her body trembling with strange, feverish dreams. Sometimes she saw glowing eyes in her sleep, two small figures running through a forest of silver trees, laughing, calling her name. Lucien would wake her, whispering, "It's okay, you're safe." But his eyes told another story. He could feel it too, the pull of something ancient inside her, something that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. One evening, as snow fell silently outside, Mara took his hand and placed it on her belly. She whispered, "They're strong." He nodded, his throat tight. "They're ours." She smiled faintly. "No matter what happens, promise me they'll grow up knowing love." Lucien's jaw clenched. Even if the world hates them, they'll know they were wanted. The firelight flickered, casting gold over their faces. And as Lucien held her, neither of them noticed the faint outline forming in the frost on the window, two tiny handprints glowing like silver fire. Winter deepened. The world shrank to the sound of the wind and the crackle of the fire. Mara's belly grew, and with it strange phenomena. Lights flickering when she laughed, snow melting where she walked, wolves howling at her scent from miles away. Lucien began to keep a journal, documenting every change. He wrote one night, "They react to emotion. When she's afraid, the air crackles. When she's happy, everything blooms." But one night, Mara awoke to find Lucien gone. The fire was out. The door hung open, snow sweeping inside. She followed his scent into the woods, her breath freezing in the dark. Then she saw him, kneeling before a figure cloaked in black. Her heart seized. "Lucien!" He turned, eyes wide. "Mara, stay back." The figure straightened, voice low and familiar. "You can't hide from blood, boy." Eric, his father. Mara's pulse roared in her ears. "You're supposed to be dead." Eric smiled,
So were you. Lucien stepped forward, growling. You have no place here. On the contrary, Eric said softly, eyes glinting, your children are the key to immortality. My legacy. You can't outrun what's in their veins. Before Mara could move, the ground split open with a deafening crack. Eric vanished. Lucien fell to his knees, his mark glowing faintly through his shirt. And Mara realized his father had never left. He was inside the bloodline itself. By dawn, Mara sat beside Lucien, who slept fitfully, his face pale. The glow beneath his skin had faded, but the air around him hummed with unrest energy. She opened his journal, her fingers trembling as she read his last entry. If the curse lives through our children, then it means I gave it a vessel. If I die, it will awaken fully in them. Tears blurred the ink. She pressed her hands over her belly, whispering, No, I won't let it take you. Or them. Suddenly, she felt a movement, small, fluttering, powerful. Then another. 2 distinct rhythms. Mara gasped, overwhelmed with emotion. You're real. You're both real. The cabin filled with morning light. Dust shimmered in golden beams. For the first time, she smiled. Lucien stirred, his voice weak. They're strong, aren't they? She nodded, brushing his hair from his face. Stronger than us. He smiled faintly. Then they'll survive what's coming. Mara froze. What do you mean? His eyes opened slowly, and for a brief moment, the reflection of 2 moons shimmered in his eyes. Because I saw it, Mara, in the temple. 2 children, born under blood and light. One will heal the world, and the other will destroy it. Her breath caught. Lucien. But before she could speak again, the sound of distant howls echoed across the valley. Dozens of them. The pack had found them, and this time, they weren't coming to forgive.
The first howl came from the north, then another from the west. Mara froze mid-breath, her hand resting over her swollen belly. The air outside the cabin vibrated with warning. Lucien sat up from the floor, his silver eyes dim but alert. They found us. He rose too quickly and winced. The mark on his chest burned bright again. Mara stumbled to the window. Through the falling snow, she could see shadows moving between the trees. Wolves, at least 20, sleek and fast, their eyes glowing red in the dark. Her voice broke. Lucien, they'll kill you if they find you with me. He shook his head. No, they'll kill you if I let them. The wind howled louder, carrying with it the scent of blood and betrayal. Lucien grabbed his coat, stuffing his father's journal inside. We go east, through the ravine. Mara trembled. I can't run fast, not like this. He crouched and looked up at her, voice low but urgent. Then I'll carry you. She wanted to argue, but the wolves' growls drew closer, snapping twigs beneath their paws. Lucien's eyes flashed with fierce resolve. If they catch us, they'll take the babies, and if Arik gets them, the curse will rule again. Mara swallowed her fear and nodded. Then we don't let them catch us. Lucien lifted her easily, wrapping her in his coat. Her breath hitched as the cold air hit her face. Behind them, the pack's war cry echoed through the valley, deep, guttural, and final. The hunt had begun. Snow fell in violent sheets as Lucien sprinted through the forest, his breath steaming in the cold air. Mara clung to him tightly, her heartbeat syncing with his. The babies moved within her, restless as if sensing danger. He moved like a ghost, barely touching the ground, weaving through trees with supernatural speed. But the pack was faster. They could smell her blood. Suddenly, a shadow leapt from the trees, slamming into Lucien's side. He stumbled, rolling through the snow, shielding Mara with his body. When he looked up, 3 wolves surrounded them, growling, saliva steaming in the cold. Lucien of Silvercrest, snarled the lead wolf, his voice distorted between man and beast. You were warned. The cursed woman must die. Lucien's lips curled back over my dead body. So be it. The wolf lunged, but Lucien was faster. He shifted mid-air, bones cracking, fur exploding from his skin. His roar split the night like thunder. The clash was brutal and raw. Snow turned red. Wolves howled in pain. Mara crawled backward, clutching her stomach, whispering, "Please, please stop." One of the wolves broke from the fight and charged her. Without thinking, she raised her hand and light burst from her palm. A wave of silver energy rippled outward, hurling the wolf into a tree with the crack of bone. Lucien froze mid-fight, his eyes wide. "Mara, what did you just do?" She stared at her trembling hands, glowing faintly. I don't know." But deep inside, the babies kicked again, and she knew whatever she had unleashed didn't come from her. It came from them. They reached the ravine by dawn, snow glinting like shards of glass. Lucien's fur was matted with blood, his breath ragged. He shifted back to human form, barely staying upright. Mara wrapped her arms around him. "You're hurt." "I'll heal," he whispered. "You won't if we stop." The ravine stretched before them, a narrow path of ice and jagged stone. Below, a frozen river shimmered underneath the rising sun. Lucien started across, one careful step at a time, Mara close behind. Then a sound tore through the air, an ear-splitting howl, louder and deeper than the rest. Lucien's blood went cold. That's him. Mara's heart pounded. Who? He turned slowly, dread in his eyes. Alpha Kieran, my father's enforcer. A massive black wolf emerged from the tree line, his fur glinting like obsidian. His eyes were not red, but gold. Lucien whispered, "Run." Mara tried, but her legs gave out. Kieran shifted into human form, tall and broad, his face cold and unreadable. "Lucien," he said, voice like gravel. "You were my brother once. Don't make me kill you." Lucien stepped forward, trembling but defiant. "You want her? You'll have to go through me." Kieran's gaze flicked to Mara's belly, then back. "So it's true. The heirs exist." Lucien growled, "They're innocent." "Innocence doesn't matter when the world burns," Kieran said softly. The ice beneath their feet cracked, the wind howled, and then the ravine gave way. The world fell away in an explosion of snow and sound. Mara screamed as she plummeted, Lucien's arms locking around her. The frozen river rushed up fast, shattering beneath them like glass. When the world stopped spinning, everything was silent except the wind. Lucien dragged himself from the icy water, gasping, his skin pale. He found Mara lying nearby, soaked but breathing, her hands still protectively on her belly. He crawled to her, shaking. "Mara, talk to me." Her lips parted weakly. "I'm fine. The babies." He placed his hand over her stomach. 2 strong heartbeats thumped beneath his palm. Relief broke through his chest, raw and overwhelming. Then came a new sound. Footsteps. He looked up. Kieran stood above the ravine, staring down at them. He didn't move to attack. He simply said, "You can't hide forever." Lucien growled, "Watch me." Kieran's expression softened, almost regretful. "If they are what your father said, Lucien, you'll lose more than your life. You'll lose her." And then he turned and vanished into the snow. Lucien held Mara close, whispering, "I won't let him be right." The river carried them away slowly, deeper into the valley where the forest grew ancient and still. When they finally stopped, Mara looked up at the sky. "Lucien," she whispered, "what if they're right? What if one of them is dangerous?" He kissed her forehead gently. "Then we'll raise them strong enough to choose light."
She smiled faintly, though fear still glimmered behind her eyes. And somewhere deep within her womb, one heartbeat fluttered fast and wild, while the other slowed, calm, and cold. They took shelter in a cave hidden beneath the cliffs, lighting a small fire from broken branches. Lucien sat shirtless by the flames, his skin marked with cuts that refused to close. Mara leaned against him, exhausted, the soft glow of fire reflecting in her eyes. "What if this never ends?" she whispered. He stared into the flames. "Then we end it ourselves." She frowned. "How?" Lucien turned to her, a strange calm in his expression. "There's an old prophecy in my family. It says the curse of Silvercrest can only be destroyed by the blood of its heirs, if they choose to face it before it consumes them." Her breath caught. "You mean the babies?" He nodded slowly. "They're the key to ending this, but they're also what keeps it alive." Mara shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No, I won't let them be sacrificed." Lucien took her hands gently. "No one will, but we have to prepare. When they're born, they'll be hunted." She pressed her forehead against him. "Then we'll protect them together." Outside, the storm raged, howling through the cliffs like the voices of lost wolves. Inside, the fire crackled quietly. Lucien whispered, "Whatever happens, remember this. Love brought them here. Not the curse, not fate. Us." Mara smiled weakly, though fear still glimmered behind her eyes. And as she drifted into sleep against his chest, the fire flickered once, forming the faint shape of two wolves running side by side in the flames. One golden, one silver. The prophecy had already begun. The storm eased by morning, leaving the world coated in a glimmering white silence. Lucien awoke to find Mara already sitting by the cave mouth, her breath clouding in the cold air, her hands pressed over her belly. Something about her looked different, her skin faintly glowing, her eyes reflecting the faint silver of dawn. "Mara?" he whispered, moving closer. She smiled weakly. "They're awake. I can feel them moving." He knelt beside her, laying his hand on her stomach. The warmth that pulsed beneath his palm wasn't human. It hummed, alive, ancient, powerful. Then he felt it, a strange rhythm. One heartbeat fast and fierce, the other steady, almost cold. Mara flinched slightly. They're fighting." Lucien's eyes widened. "Fighting?" She nodded, her face pale. "Inside me. One tries to calm the other, but, Lucien, it's like they already know." A sharp pain lanced through her and she gasped. He caught her before she fell, panic flashing across his face. "Breathe, Mara. Look at me." She squeezed his hand. "There's something wrong. I can feel it." Lucien's pulse thundered in his ears. He'd read of this once in his father's journals. Twin heirs born under a cursed moon, one destined to be the savior of the bloodline, the other the destroyer. The truth hit him like ice water. He pulled Mara close, his voice breaking. "Mara, I think I know why the pack want them." Her breath pulled in short, terrified bursts. "Don't say it." But he did. "They believe one of our children will end the curse, and the other will become it." The revelation sank between them like a blade. Mara shook her head in disbelief. "That's not true. They're both ours. They're both innocent." Lucien's jaw tightened. "Innocent doesn't matter to the council. They'll destroy them both before they risk being wrong." Mara rose to her feet, trembling. "Then we have to prove them wrong. We'll protect them." Lucien turned away, his voice quiet but heavy. "You don't understand. I've seen what the curse can do. I've been what it makes you." He stared into the snow. "If one of them carries that darkness, it will kill you, Mara, or me, or both." Tears burned her eyes. So what are you saying? That we choose between them? He turned sharply, eyes glinting with pain. I'm saying we may not have a choice. She slapped him before she realized she'd moved. Don't you dare talk like that. Lucien's eyes softened, shame flooding in. I'm sorry. He took a breath, but I need to know which one carries it before the pack finds us. Mira backed away, her voice trembling. You won't touch them. I'm not trying to hurt them, he said. I'm trying to save them. Her eyes filled with tears. By doubting them before they're even born? Lucien stepped closer, his voice clacking. By making sure they get a chance to live. For a moment, the air between them was filled only with their wagged breaths. Then Mira whispered, if you truly believe one of them is cursed, then you've already lost faith in the other. Her words hit harder than any blow. Lucien turned away, his heart breaking quietly in the dawn light. They didn't speak for hours. The fire burned low, flickering shadows across the cave walls. Lucien sat at the edge, staring into the snow. Every instinct screamed that danger was coming. He could smell it in the wind. The pack, drawing closer. Behind him, Mara whispered softly to her belly, words he couldn't hear. He caught fragments. You're safe. Mommy's here. Both of you. He closed his eyes. Both of you. He'd never known what it meant to be protected. His own father had raised him to be a weapon, not a son. But looking at Mira now, broken, exhausted, still whispering love to two unborn hearts, he understood something new. Love wasn't power, it was sacrifice. The sound of a branch cracking outside snapped him alert. He rose, sniffing the air. Wolves. He motioned to Mira silently. Hide behind the rocks. Don't make a sound. She obeyed, clutching her stomach, her breath shaking. Lucien stepped outside, the cold biting through his thin shirt. Snow drifted in silence. Then, movement. A figure stepped out from behind the trees. Kieran, he hissed. The older alpha looked weary, his eyes haunted. Lucien, I didn't come to fight. Then why are you here? He sighed. To warn you, the council knows about the twins. They're sending hunters, not wolves, humans. Lucien froze. What? Then, your father made a deal with them before he died. If the curse ever resurfaced, they would cleanse the bloodline, all of it. Lucien's stomach dropped. Mira? Karen nodded grimly. She's their target. Lucien lunged, grabbing Karen by the throat. If you let them here. Karen didn't resist. I haven't, but they're close. You have hours at most. Lucien released him, pacing. His mind raced. Why are you warning me? Karen's gaze softened. Because once you were like a brother to me, and because I saw your father die begging for forgiveness. Lucien froze. He begged? Karen nodded. He tried to stop the curse. He made the deal thinking it would end with him. He didn't know it would pass to your children. Lucien turned to the cave. Then we'll run again. Karen's voice deepened. You can't keep running. The hunters carry silver laced with wolfsbane. They'll track her scent and burn the valley to ash if they must. Lucien's jaw clenched. Mira? Karen nodded grimly. She's their target. Lucien lunged, grabbing Karen by the throat. If you lend them here. Karen didn't resist. I haven't, but they're close. You have hours at most. Lucien released him, pacing. His mind raced. Why are you warning me? Karen's gaze softened. Because once you were like a brother to me, and because I saw your father die begging for forgiveness. Lucien froze. He begged? Karen nodded. He tried to stop the curse. He made the deal thinking it would end with him. He didn't know it would pass to your children. Lucien turned to the cave. Then we'll run again. Karen's voice deepened. You can't keep running. The hunters carry silver laced with wolfsbane. They'll track her scent and burn the valley to ash if they must. Lucien's jaw clenched. Mira? Karen nodded grimly. She's their target. Lucien lunged, grabbing Karen by the throat. If you've led them here. Karen didn't resist. I haven't, but they're close. You have hours at most. Lucien released him, pacing, his mind raced. Why are you warning me? Karen's gaze softened, because once you were like a brother to me, and because I saw your father die begging for forgiveness. Lucien froze. He begged? Karen nodded. He tried to stop the cursed Lucien. He made the deal thinking it would end with him. He didn't know it would pass to your children. Lucien turned to the cave. Then we'll run again. Karen's voice deepened. You can't keep running. The hunters carry silver laced with wolfsbane. They'll track your scent and burn the valley to ash if they must. Lucien's jaw clenched. Then I'll face them. Karen shook his head. You'll die. Lucien's eyes gleamed like moonlight. Then I'll die buying them time. He started toward the cave, but Karen's voice stopped him. There's another way. He turned slowly. You mean she decides which one lives? Karen nodded. Yes. Lucien's heart twisted. And if she refuses, then neither will survive. The choice hung in the air like a noose. Behind them, a faint sound echoed. Footsteps. Human. The hunters were already here. Lucien rushed back into the cave, breath sharp in panic. Mara, we have to go now. She stood already, sensing the danger. How close? Too close. She looked at him, searching his face. You talked to Karen, didn't you? What did he say? He hesitated. He told me about the moon shrine. Her eyes widened. The goddess's altar? He nodded. It's the only place strong enough to reveal which twin bears the curse. Mara's voice broke. No, you're not taking them there. You're not making them choose. Lucien grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. If we don't, the hunters will kill us all. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Lucien, please. I'm not doing this to hurt you, he said softly. I'm trying to save you. She looked up at him, eyes full of pain and love. Then promise me, if anything happens, you protect them. Both, no matter what. He hesitated, his throat tight. I promise. Outside, a gunshot cracked through the silence. Snow exploded near the cave entrance. Lucien flinched. They're here. He pulled Mara close, shifting as the bullets hit stone. His fur burst through his skin, his roar echoing off the mountains. Run, Mara! He turned once, long enough to see him charge into the storm, his eyes blazing silver and wild. Then she ran, barefoot through the snow, clutching her belly as her tears mixed with the cold wind. Behind her, the howls of men and wolves collided into one sound, rage and grief and war. And as she disappeared into the forest, the moon hung full above them, bathing the world in silver light. Somewhere within her womb, 2 heartbeats answered the call, one pulsing bright with love, the other burning cold with vengeance.
The storm had calmed by the time Mara reached the ridge. The world stretched out beneath her. Frozen valleys, black forests, and the faint shimmer of distant flames. Behind her, gunfire echoed faintly through the night. Ahead, the sky glowed silver blue, the moon shrine. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she climbed the final hill, snow crunching beneath her boots. Every step sent waves of pain through her body. She could feel the twins twisting, restless, their energy building like a storm inside her. Please, she whispered, clutching her belly. Hold on, little ones. When she reached the top, the sight stole her breath. The shrine was ancient, pillars carved from pale stone, rising in a perfect circle. At its center stood a pool of still water that reflected the moon like glass. It was silent, untouched by time. Mara stepped forward slowly, her fingers brushing the air above the pool. The surface rippled, and silver light bloomed outward, wrapping around her like mist. Then a voice, soft, melodic, and impossibly ancient, filled the air. Daughter of sorrow, bearer of light and shadow. Mara gasped, spinning around. Who's there? The air shimmered,
A figure stepped from the mist, a woman with silver hair that flowed like liquid, her eyes glowing with the light of stars. Mara whispered, "The moon goddess." The goddess smiled faintly. "You come seeking truth." Mara fell to her knees. "Please, my children. They say one will destroy the world. Tell me it isn't true." The goddess's expression darkened. "Truth does not bend to prayer, child. It only reveals what is already written." The goddess raised her hand, and the air around them changed. The shrine dissolved into light and smoke, replaced by visions swirling in the mist. Mara saw two children, both beautiful, both wild. A boy with eyes like Lucien's, silver and fierce. A girl with eyes like her own, gentle and bright. They ran through a forest of moonlight, laughing, until the scene twisted. The boy stopped and turned. His smile faded. His shadow grew long and sharp behind him. The girl reached out a hand to him. "Brother?" His voice echoed through the mist. "The curse, it wants me." Then everything exploded into darkness. Fire, screams, wolves howling in agony. Mara cried out, clutching her head, "Stop, please." The vision faded. The goddess stood silent, her eyes full of sorrow. "It is written," she said quietly. "One twin carries the heart of light, the other, the shadow of the first curse. Together, they balance the world. Apart, they destroy it." Mara trembled. "Then there's still hope. If they stay together." The goddess's gaze sharpened. "Hope demands sacrifice. One must remain bound to darkness so the other may walk in light." Mara's voice cracked. "Bound? You mean condemned?" The goddess stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "To save one, you must seal the other." Mara shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, I won't choose between them." The goddess's voice softened. "Then fate will choose for you." Mara looked down, her hands trembling over her belly. She whispered, "There has to be another way." But the goddess only turned toward the moon, silent as stone. The ground trembled, the light dimmed. Mara looked up in confusion, then fear. From the edge of the shrine, shadows slithered across the snow, rising into the shape of wolves, dozens of them, made of smoke and darkness, their eyes burning red. The goddess turned, her tone suddenly hard. "They have found you." Mara's heart pounded. "Who?" "Men, wolves, the living and the dead," the goddess said. "Your enemies march together." As if on cue, the roar of an engine shattered the silence. Headlights cut through the trees, trucks filled with hunters. Behind them, silver shapes emerged, Lucien's pack, forced to serve the council. Mara's breath caught. Lucien. She could sense him faintly, his scent, his pain. He was fighting his way toward her. The goddess lifted her hand. "Go. Protect your children. The moon's light will guide you to him." Mara turned to run, but the goddess caught her wrist. "Remember this, child. When the time comes, the one who carries the curse will cry your name. You must not answer." Mara's eyes filled with horror. Why?" "Because love will be the chain that seals or breaks the curse," the goddess whispered. Mara wanted to ask more, but the world erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through the air, sparks flying off the shrine stones. Wolves collided with men, snarling, blood staining the snow. Mara ducked behind a pillar, clutching her stomach as the twins stirred violently. She could feel it, their fear, their energy growing. Then, in a blinding pulse of light, her body exploded with power. The hunters screamed, their weapons shattering. Mara fell to her knees, gasping. The goddess's voice echoed faintly through the storm. Your children have awakened. Lucien burst through the trees moments later. Blood streaked his fur, eyes wild. He shifted mid-run, stumbling toward her. Mara! She turned, tears streaming down her face. Lucien, they're coming from all sides. He grabbed her hands, his voice breaking. We have to end this now. Before she could reply, Kieran appeared behind him, bleeding but alive. There's no time. The council has unleashed silver gas. Lucien froze. That'll kill them. Kieran nodded grimly. Unless you do what must be done. He looked toward the glowing pool at the shrine's center. Offer them to the moon, Lucien. Let her decide. Mara screamed. No! Lucien turned to her, agony written across his face. If we don't, the hunters will take them and use them. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You think I can just hand them over? Lucien took her face in his hands. You're not handing them over. You're saving them. The world around them burned. Wolves colliding, men shouting, snow melting under fire. Mara looked into his eyes, saw the boy she once loved and the alpha he'd become. Lucien, if you do this... He kissed her forehead softly. Forgive me. Then he stepped into the pool, lifting her trembling hands onto her belly. Silver light erupted around them, so bright that it silenced everything. The moon shone full overhead, casting a beam directly upon them. And in that moment, the goddess's voice returned, softer now. Two hearts, one destiny. One must fall, so the other may rise. Mara screamed as pain ripped through her, like fire and lightning inside her veins. And then silence. When the light faded, Mara lay on the cold stone, her breath shallow. Lucien knelt beside her, his face streaked with tears. In her arms lay two newborns, tiny, perfect, wrapped in light, a boy and a girl. Their cries filled the night, pure and strong. Mara sobbed, clutching them close. They're here. They're alive. Lucien smiled weakly, his hand trembling as he touched the boy's cheek. You did it. But then something changed. The moonlight dimmed and the air grew cold. The baby boy's eyes fluttered open, silver like Lucien's, but shadow rippled behind them. His small hand tightened around his sister's wrist. Mara froze. Lucien. He looked at the boy, realization dawning. The curse. It chose him. Before either could move, a shadow lashed out from the pool, striking Lucien in the chest. He gasped, falling backward. Lucien! Mara screamed. He reached for her, his voice fading. Protect them.
Don't let him fall to darkness. Then his eyes glazed with silver light, and he went still. Mayra clutched the babies to her chest, sobbing, No, please, no. The goddess's voice whispered through the wind. The bond is sealed. His soul guards the cursed air. Only your love can set him free. Mayra looked down at her children, both crying now. The boy's tears dark, the girl's pure light. She kissed their foreheads, whispering through her sobs, You'll both live. You'll both know love, even if it kills me. Above them, the moon dimmed behind drifting clouds, and far in the distance, the howls of wolves turned mournful, an elegy for the alpha who died to save his family. The forest was silent, too silent. Snow had buried the battlefield beneath a white shroud, hiding the bodies, muffling the screams that once tore through the air. Mara moved like a ghost among the ruins, her black cloak torn, her hair tangled and damp with blood. In her arms, 2 tiny bundles stirred, the twins. She had wrapped them in Lucien's coat, the sense of him still clinging faintly to the leather. Every breath of wind carried his memory, his voice, his warmth, his promise. The moon shrine behind her was now just rubble and ash. The pool of silver light had frozen solid, trapping within it a single image, Lucien's hand reaching toward her. Mara pressed a trembling kiss to her children's foreheads. "We have to go," she whispered. Her body ached with exhaustion, every step heavier than the last. But she couldn't stop. The hunters would return. The council would send more. And now they would not stop until they had the twins, the living prophecy. She looked down at them. The girl slept peacefully, her tiny hand clutching the edge of her cloak, but the boy's eyes were open, silver, watching her. For a moment his gaze seemed older than it should have been, too knowing. A whisper echoed faintly through the cold air, soft, distant, yet achingly familiar. "Mara." She froze. Her heart stopped. It was Lucien's voice. She turned, scanning the tree line. Nothing, just snow and wind. "Mara," the voice came again, gentler this time. "Don't stop walking." Tears welled in her eyes as she took a shaky breath. "Lucien, is that you?" The air shimmered faintly, and the snowflakes around her began to swirl in a slow circle, glowing faintly silver. The voice returned, closer now, though no one was there. "Keep moving north. There's a cabin by the river, safe walls, warmth." Mara's lips trembled. "Am I dreaming?" "No," came the answer, soft but firm. "You're not dreaming. You're remembering." And for the first time since the shrine, she let herself breathe. The voice didn't sound like a ghost. It sounded alive, strong. Lucien, the alpha who had once stood against the world. "Lucien," she whispered. "They said your soul guards our son." Silence. Then, almost tenderly, "It does." Her knees weakened. "Then why can I still hear you?" "Because love breaks rules. Even death listens to it." The snow thickened as she walked, each flake glowing silver where it touched her hair. The twins stirred again. The girl yawned softly, the boy blinking up at her with solemn eyes. Lucien's voice turned serious. "You have to be careful. The boy, he'll feel me. He'll hear things. Teach him control before the shadow does." Mara's heart clenched. "He's just a baby." "So was I when the curse found me," the voice said, fading slightly. "Lucien." "Don't stop walking, Mara." She bit back a sob, clutching the twins close, and kept moving through the snow. Each step felt like walking between 2 worlds, life and death, love and loss. At last, through the white veil of snowfall, she saw it. A small wooden cabin by a frozen river, its chimney broken, its windows dark. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. Inside,
The air smelled of cedar and dust. Mara set the twins by the fire pit and coaxed a small flame to life using scraps of bark and an old matchbox she found on the shelf. The light flickered across the walls, revealing carvings, wolves, moons, constellations. This was no ordinary cabin. It was a hunter's refuge, built by someone who had once known their kind. Mara wrapped the twins in blankets and sat close to the fire, the warmth easing the ache in her bones. Her eyes wandered to the window. The snow outside glowed faintly under the moonlight. She spoke softly, almost afraid the silence would break her. "I wish you were here, Lucien." For a moment, the fire crackled louder. The shadows along the wall shifted, forming the outline of a man, tall, broad-shouldered, his head bowed. Her breath caught. "Lucien?" The shadow didn't move, but the voice returned. "You're not alone." Mara pressed her hand to her chest. "I don't know how to do this without you." "You already are," he said gently. "You're stronger than you think." Her tears fell silently, one by one, into the fire. Then, as if drawn by the sound of her sobs, the boy began to cry. Beep, low, almost like a growl. Mara knelt beside them, rocking them gently. "Shh, Mommy's here." Lucien's voice lingered in the air, faint as smoke. "The world will call him cursed, but remember, Mara, the shadow is still half light. Don't let anyone make him forget that." Then the voice faded, leaving her alone with the flickering fire and two tiny hearts beating beside her own. Days passed, then weeks. The cabin became their world. Mara hunted small game, gathered wood, and learned how to survive off the land. She named the twins Lyra and Kale, Light and Sky. It felt right. Lyra was gentle, always smiling, always calm when Mara sang to her. But Kale was different. His eyes glowed faintly when the moon was full. He stared at things Mara couldn't see. Sometimes, in the stillness, his little hand would reach out toward the shadows, and they would move. At first, I told myself it was imagination, but one night, as I rocked him to sleep, a cold wind swept through the cabin and the fire dimmed. "Mara." The voice was not Lucien's. It was hollow, distant, wrong. She clutched Kale close. "Who's there?" No answer, just a low laugh that echoed from the walls. Then the boy's silver eyes opened. He wasn't crying. He was staring at the corner of the room. "Mommy," Lyra whispered softly from her cot. "Someone's watching." Mara froze. The fire flared suddenly, throwing light into the shadows, and for a moment, she saw it. A figure standing at the window. Not human, not wolf, something between. Her blood ran cold. Lucien's voice returned, fierce this time. "Run, Mara." She grabbed both twins, threw open the door, and vanished into the night. Behind her, the cabin erupted in flames. The forest swallowed them whole. Snow, smoke, fear. It all blurred into one. Mara ran until her lungs burned, until her legs trembled beneath her. The twins cried softly against her chest, their tiny hearts pounding in rhythm with hers. When she finally collapsed against a tree, she looked back. The fire from the cabin had faded to a dull orange glow in the distance. Lucien's voice whispered faintly, almost like a prayer. It's starting. They found the boy. Mara's tears froze on her cheeks. What do they want? The curse. The council wants its power, and the shadow that follows him, it wants me. She shivered, pressing her forehead to the snow. I can't keep running forever. You don't have to, the voice said softly. Not forever, but you have to reach the northern ridge. There's a pack loyal to me there. They'll protect you. Mara took a deep, shaking breath. And you? Will I ever see you again? Silence. Then, when the moon bleeds, I'll find you. The wind howled through the trees, bending them like reeds. Mara gathered her courage, holding Lyra and Kale close. Then I'll wait, she whispered, for the moon to bleed. She rose, her shadow stretching long across the snow, the faintest hint of dawn glinting on the horizon. Somewhere far behind her, in the ruins of the cabin, the fire flickered one last time, just enough to form the outline of a man kneeling beside a pool of light. Lucien's spirit, watching, waiting. The Alpha's last promise had not died with him. Years passed like whispers through pine and frost. The world forgot the name Mara Leith, but the forest never did. Deep in the northern wilds, a hidden pack thrived under her quiet leadership. She was no longer the girl who begged the goddess for mercy. She was a mother, a hunter, and a legend whispered around campfires. Lyra and Kale grew beneath the howling moons, their bond unbreakable, their power undeniable. Lyra had her father's grace, her mother's heart. She healed wounded wolves with a single touch, laughter spilling from her like sunlight through clouds. But Kale was different. His power grew in shadows. He could silence wind, call storms, and see what others could not. When he looked into the fire, it bent toward him. When he cried, the snow melted. Mara watched him closely, torn between awe and fear. She loved them both beyond reason, but the goddess's words haunted her. One carries the curse. When the time comes, he will cry your name. One winter night, as they sat by the hearth, Kale looked up from the flames. "Mama," he said quietly, "why does the moon hurt?" Mara froze. "What do you mean, my love?" He pointed to the window. Outside, the moon hung heavy and full, its edges faintly tinged red. "It's bleeding," he whispered. Mara's breath caught. She ran outside, the cold biting her skin. Above them, the moon glowed crimson, like an open wound in the sky. The prophecy, it was happening. From deep within the forest, wolves howled, not in celebration, but in mourning. The air thickened, the wind turned warm, smelling of iron and smoke. Mara clutched her pendant, the silver crescent Lucien had given her. It pulsed faintly against her skin. Inside the cabin, Lyra began to glow, soft and gold, while Kale's eyes darkened to liquid silver. Both twins screamed at once, one in light, one in shadow. Mara dropped to her knees, torn between them. "Lyra! Kale!" Lyra's light flared so bright, it burned through the walls, while Kale's shadow grew tendrils that curled across the floor. The two forces met in the air between them, colliding, twisting, fighting like two halves of a storm. "Stop!" Mara cried, but her voice vanished in the roar of wind. The fire blew out. Every candle died, and in the darkness, a familiar voice whispered, low, pained, but unmistakable. "Mara." Her heart froze. "Lucien!" A shape formed behind Kale, tall, radiant, half man, half light. Lucien's spirit. He knelt beside his son, his touch glowing faintly where it met the boy's trembling shoulder. Kale, listen to me. You must not let it win. Kale's voice shook. It hurts, Papa. Lucien's face broke with grief. I know, my boy, but you're stronger than it. Mara reached for him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Lucien, help me. What do I do? He turned toward her, pain shadowing his eyes. When the moon bleeds, the bond breaks. One twin will choose light, the other darkness. But if you intervene, both will die. Mare's scream echoed through the cabin. No, there must be another way. Lucien's light flickered. Only love can unwrite the curse. And then he was gone. The twins collapsed, unconscious. The moon's red glow deepened. Mara fell to her knees in the dark, whispering, Love. How can love stop this? Morning came, but the light was strange, ashen and thin. Mara sat by the twins' bedside, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. They slept side by side, hands barely touching, but even in sleep, light and shadow fought between them. Lyra's breath came soft and slow, Kale's sharp and restless. Outside, the forest was uneasy. The pack whispered that the moon's bleeding meant the end of balance. Some had already fled fearing the curse. Others bowed to Mara, promising loyalty till death. But one wolf, her oldest ally, a scarred beta named Roran, stood silent at her door. You can't keep this secret anymore, he said quietly. Mara met his gaze. They're children. Their power, Roran replied, and the world has a way of fearing what it can't control. She turned away, clutching Lucien's pendant. They're my children. That's all that matters. Roran's expression softened. You can't fight the prophecy, Mara, but maybe you can shape it. That night, as the twins stirred in their sleep, Mara made her choice. She took them both into her arms and whispered softly, If love is what breaks the curse, then you'll never grow apart, not while I breathe. She placed their hands together, fingers intertwined, and sang an old lullaby, one that Lucien had once hummed under moonlight. The air shimmered faintly around them, silver and gold twisting together. For a moment, the curse quieted. Mara smiled through tears. See, love wins. But outside the cabin, in the shadows beyond the trees, unseen eyes watched, and a low voice whispered to the night, Let her think that. That voice belonged to the one the wolves called the Seer of Ashes, a hooded man with eyes like dying coals. He had been a high priest of the council once, exiled for seeking power beyond the goddess's will. Now, he wanted the twins. Two halves of the same soul, he murmured, kneeling beside a black fire. One to destroy, one to command. Bring them to me. Shadows moved at his command, warriors born of smoke and hate. They vanished into the trees, following the scent of the cursed child. Back in the cabin, Mara's instincts prickled. She looked toward the forest, heart racing. Something was wrong. Stay with them, she told Roran, grabbing her bow. I'll check the perimeter. Snow fell thick and silent. The air stung her lungs as she moved through the trees, every sense alert. Then, a whisper. Mara. She froze. It wasn't Lucien's voice this time. She turned, and for the briefest moment she saw it. Kale's reflection in the snow, even though he was sleeping miles behind her. His eyes glowing faintly. Mama, the echo said. They're coming. Then the image vanished. Mara ran. She burst through the cabin door just as the first shadow creature struck. Roran leapt forward, his claws meeting darkness, but the thing moved like smoke. Go, he roared. Take them. Mara grabbed the twins, clutching them tight. Lyra awoke with a scream. Kale's eyes flashed silver white. Mama! He cried, his voice shaking the walls. Outside, the snow turned black. The cabin exploded in flames as Mara ran through the storm. Every shadow reached for her, whispering Kale's name. She stumbled through the trees, breath ragged, heart breaking. The twins cried, Lyra's high and terrified, Kale's deep, echoing like thunder. And then through the chaos, the blood-red moon rose higher. It wasn't bleeding anymore. It was weeping. Each drop of light that fell from it burned the ground where it landed. The forest hissed with steam. Wolves howled in agony. Mara collapsed in the snow, clutching the twins to her chest. Please, goddess, help me. The air shimmered, and the silver-haired goddess appeared once more, her eyes full of sorrow. You were warned. The curse has awakened. Mara looked up, broken. Then take me instead. The goddess knelt, brushing a finger against the twins' cheeks. It is not your life that binds them. It is your love. If you would save them, you must do what no mother can. Mara's breath caught. What? Let them choose, the goddess said. Mara shook her head violently. They're children. Even children carry destiny, the goddess whispered. One will bear the shadow, one will bear the light, but both cannot live in the same world. Tears streamed down Mara's face. No, no, I won't lose either of them. The goddess's voice softened. Then the curse will choose for you. She vanished, leaving only silence and the sound of Mara's sobs. Above them, the moon's final drop of blood fell to earth. Where it landed, the snow turned to glass.
The night sky blazed silver, every cloud cut open by the full moon's fierce light. Lucien stood at the border of the packlands, his chest bare, his hands trembling. Behind him, his warriors waited, but his gaze was fixed on the figure walking out of the forest, Mara. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled, her eyes burning with something he had never seen before. She didn't come as a victim, she came as an alpha. The air between them shimmered with energy, thick and ancient as if the moon itself was watching. Mara, Lucien breathed, voice breaking. She stopped inches from him. You wanted a mistake, Lucien. Here I am. For the first time, he fell to his knees before her, his wolf bowing low. The alpha who once ruled empires now trembled before the woman he had cast out. Her scent, her power, her defiance, it was undeniable. She wasn't his weakness, she was his equal. And when she placed her hand on his cheek, the bond between them flared alive, glowing faintly with silver light. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Before Lucien could speak, a shadow burst from the trees. Kael, his beta, the one who had betrayed them both. His voice was venom. You think she belongs to you, Lucien? You think the moon chooses liars? He lunged forward, claws out, his wolf half shifting in fury. Lucien barely blocked him, but Kael's rage was monstrous. You left her to die, Kael roared, slashing across Lucien's shoulder. You don't deserve her. Lucien's blood hit the dirt, steaming in the moonlight. Then come and take her, he growled. The fight exploded, fur, claws, and light. Every strike echoed through the trees. Mara's scream tore through the night as Kael knocked Lucien to the ground, fangs aimed for his throat. But in that instant, Mara's power surged. Her eyes glowed white. Her voice was not hers. It was the moon goddess herself. Enough! The word froze everything. Kael was thrown back by invisible force, his body trembling. The light around Mara dimmed, and she collapsed, but not before Lucien caught her in his arms, his face wet with blood and tears. When Mara opened her eyes, dawn was breaking. Lucien knelt beside her, exhausted, his wounds half healed. The pack surrounded them silently, some in awe, others in fear. Kael was gone, vanished into the woods, stripped of his rank and his pride. Mara, Lucien whispered, brushing her hair away from her face. You saved me, and them. Her lips trembled. No, Lucien, the moon saved us both. He closed his eyes, his hand resting over hers. I don't deserve forgiveness, but if I could start again. She stopped him gently. Then start by standing with me, not above me. Those words broke him more than any wound ever could. He nodded, his voice trembling. Always. The twins came running then, barefoot and laughing, their tiny hands reaching out to touch both of them. The sight made the entire pack drop to their knees. The heirs, the children of the moon's chosen, had returned. As the first rays of morning lit the clearing, Mara felt something shift inside her. The burden she had carried, rejection, humiliation, fear, melted into something stronger. She looked around at the faces of wolves who once scorned her. Many bowed their heads, whispering apologies. Others watched in silence, unsure what kind of alpha she had become. Lucien rose beside her, his arm protective but respectful. Silvercrest has a new Luna, he said, his voice echoing through the air. And she is not my mistake. She is my redemption. The cheers that followed weren't just sound, they were healing. Wolves who had doubted her now howled her name, their voices rising with the sun. Mara lifted her face to the sky, eyes glimmering with tears. For once, the light didn't burn her, it blessed her. But deep in her heart, she knew peace was fragile. Kael was still out there, and the moon never truly rested. That night, when everyone slept, Mara stood alone by the balcony overlooking the valley. The scent of pine and rain carried memories she couldn't shake. She closed her eyes, whispering a promise to the moon above. If darkness comes again, I'll be ready. Behind her, Lucien's footsteps approached softly. You don't have to face it alone anymore, he said, wrapping his arms around her. His warmth pressed against her back, his heartbeat steady. She leaned into him, her tears falling silently. And you gave me something I thought I'd lost. Hope. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of distant howls across the mountains, a chorus of loyalty and love. In that moment, Mara realized she wasn't the girl he called a mistake. She was the woman the moon had chosen to change everything. And as the stars faded, she whispered into the dawn, "Let them come. I'm ready."
The council hall of Silvercrest was carved from ancient stone in moonlight. Torches lined the walls, their flames trembling as if afraid of what was about to happen. The air smelled of iron, smoke, and old secrets. Lucien stood at the center, his face pale but resolute, while Mara entered through the grand doors, flanked by her twins. Every alpha from the northern territories was present, watching with narrowed eyes. The elders had summoned them to decide Lucien's fate after Kael's accusations of betrayal and blood treason. Kael himself stepped from the shadows, his once proud posture reduced to bitterness and scars. He betrayed the moon, Kyle growled, voice shaking. He rejected his fated mate. He broke the bond that keeps our kind alive. Lucien didn't deny it. He stepped forward, eyes calm. I did, he said, voice low but carrying through the hall. And for that, I should have lost everything. But the moon showed mercy, through her. He turned to Mara. She's the proof that love can heal even a cursed alpha. Whispers rippled through the room. Mara met their eyes, one by one. I don't need vengeance, she said, but this pack needs truth. The silence that followed was suffocating. Kyle's lip curled. Truth? Then let's see if the moon agrees with your version. He drew a silver dagger from his belt, its edge glowing faintly under the torches. By ancient law, I challenge you both. The blood oath of Silvercrest. A gasp tore through the chamber. Even the elders stood. The blood oath was forbidden, outlawed for centuries. 2 wolves enter. The moon decides who walks out. Lucien's eyes darkened, but Mara's hand brushed his. We accept. Her words left her mouth before anyone could stop her. The elders shouted, chaos erupted, but she didn't flinch. Her gaze burned into Kyle's. This isn't for revenge. It's for every woman who was ever silenced, every mate who was ever cast aside. Lucien turned toward her, disbelief warring with pride. Mara, if we lose, she smiled faintly, then we lose together. The torches dimmed and the council doors sealed shut. The blood oath had begun. The circle was drawn in salt and silver. Wolves shifted into their true forms, watching from the shadows as the moon's light poured through the glass dome above. Kyle shifted first, massive and black-furred, his eyes glowing crimson. His growl shook the walls. Lucien followed, his silver wolf blazing like a star. Then under the moon's pull, Mara's wolf appeared, white as frost, eyes gold as dawn. The sight made the crowd gasp. Never had they seen a female alpha radiate such power. Kyle lunged first, his claws raking across Lucien's flank. Blood spattered the ground, sizzling where it met silver dust. Lucien roared, countering with a devastating blow that sent Kyle spinning. But Kyle was faster, crueler. You'll never be worthy of her, he snarled, slashing again. Before Lucien could respond, Mara struck. She moved like light through water, swift, silent, unstoppable. Her fangs sank into Kyle's shoulder, forcing him to the ground. The power of the moon surged through her body, and the entire hall began to tremble. Kyle screamed as the mark of the goddess burned across his chest. No! I was loyal! He howled. The moon's voice filled the chamber, a whisper that was also thunder. Loyalty twisted by hate is no loyalty. Kyle's body went still. The crimson glow in his eyes faded as he fell, the darkness leaving him forever. The air grew still, the salt circles shimmering faintly before dissolving. Mara shifted back, collapsing to her knees, her body trembling from the power she channeled. Lucien caught her, wrapping her in his arms. She chose, she whispered weakly. Lucien looked toward the elders, voice steady. The moon has spoken. One by one, the alphas knelt, the hall filled with the sound of howls, not of fear, but of reverence. Mara, once called a mistake, was now the moon's chosen. When the council dismissed, dawn was already breaking across the mountains. The air smelled of ash and rain. Mara stood with Lucien at the entrance of the hall, both silent for a long time. You could have died, he murmured, his hand brushing hers. So could you, she said softly. But I think the moon was never testing us to see who was stronger, only who was truer. He smiled faintly. His thumb traced her scar. Then we passed. From behind them came a soft giggle. Their twins, Ari and Lyra, stood at the edge of the hall, clutching each other's hands. Mommy, Lyra whispered, are you done fighting now? Mara knelt, gathering them both in her arms. Yes, baby, we're done. Lucien crouched beside her, his arm encircling all 3 of them. No more running, no more mistakes. As the sun rose over Silvercrest, its light touched their faces, warm and golden. The curse was broken, the pack reborn, and for the first time, Mara felt what true freedom tasted like. peace.
The world had gone quiet. A rare, gentle peace had settled over Silvercrest for the first time in years. The air carried the scent of pine and rain, the valley below blooming in golden mist. Mara stood at the balcony of the restored mansion, her long white robe rippling softly in the dawn breeze. Behind her, laughter echoed, her twins playing with wooden wolves Lucien had carved by hand. The pack was rebuilding, stone by stone, trust by trust. But peace, she knew, was never a gift. It was a promise, one she had to protect. Lucien joined her, barefoot, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, eyes still shadowed by what they'd survived. "They're saying your name in every territory," he murmured. "The Luna who defied the moon and won." She smiled faintly. "No. The Luna who finally learned she was never meant to beg." He leaned beside her, watching their children chase each other through the gardens. "I used to think power meant control, but you taught me it means surrender." Her eyes glistened. "And love means forgiveness, even for the alpha who called me a mistake." Lucien's jaw tightened, shame flickering in his gaze. But she reached up, touched his cheek, and whispered, "You paid for it. Now live for what we saved." That afternoon, the pack gathered in the courtyard for the binding ceremony, a tradition lost for decades. Wolves, young and old, knelt in a circle while Mara and Lucien stood hand in hand before the sacred flame. The twins clung to her dress, eyes wide as the elder placed a silver band around both parents' wrists, linking them with a glowing thread of light. "Do you swear," the elder intoned, "to lead not as ruler and subject, but as one?" Lucien's voice was steady. "I swear." Mara followed, her tone soft but powerful. "And I swear to never let love be mistaken for weakness again." As their vows sealed, the flame rose high, spiraling into the sky like a column of moonlight. Every wolf howled at once, a sound of renewal, loyalty, and freedom. Tears streamed down Mara's cheeks. This is what she had fought for. Not a crown, not revenge, but a home where no one feared love. The ceremony ended in song, laughter, and quiet prayers whispered to the moon above. The scars of the past didn't vanish, but they no longer ruled. Later that night, Mara wandered to the river where everything had begun, the place she'd once wept after Lucien's rejection. The moon reflected perfectly in the water, unbroken and whole. She knelt beside it, the wind tugging her hair gently. "Thank you," she whispered to the goddess, "for breaking me so I could learn to stand." Behind her came footsteps. Lucien again, silent, reverent. He crouched beside her, eyes on the reflection. "I still see it sometimes. That night, the words I said, it haunts me." She turned to him, her eyes warm but firm. "Then let it. It reminds you never to become that man again." He exhaled, nodding. "And you? Do you forgive me?" Mara smiled faintly. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Lucien. It's about choosing love again, even when the memory still burns." He took her hand, pressing a kiss against her knuckles. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it." For the first time, she believed him completely. The next morning, Mara awoke to a sky of endless gold. Lucien was gone from the bed, but a note lay where his head had been. "Meet me where the stars first fell." Her heart fluttered as she dressed quickly and followed the scent of pine and steel toward the northern cliffs. There she found him waiting, shirtless, the wind whipping through his hair, a silver pendant gleaming in his palm. "You once said you didn't want promises. You wanted proof." He opened his hand. Inside lay a ring carved from the first silver he ever mined as alpha. Mara's throat tightened. "Lucien." He stepped forward, eyes shining.
I'm not asking to own you. I'm asking to walk beside you, to raise our cubs together, to grow old in peace. Tears blurred her vision. She nodded, and he slipped the ring onto her finger. The wind howled, carrying their scent into the mountains, a promise sealed not by words, but by fate itself. They kissed beneath the blazing sky, the moon and sun both watching, united at last. Years later, the Silvercrest lands thrived again. The twins grew strong, fearless, inheriting both their mother's fire and their father's calm. The pack remembered the story of the Louna who was once called a mistake, but who became legend. On quiet nights, when the moon was full and the valley glowed silver, Lucien would find Mara sitting by the balcony, her hair now streaked with silver, her eyes still bright. He would kiss her shoulder and she would whisper, "We kept our promise." And he would answer, "Always." Far beyond them, wolves still howled in the distance, a song of love that had conquered shame, a melody that echoed through generations. The alpha who had broken her heart was no longer the man who rules her world. He was the man who stood beside her in it. And when the moonlight touched her face, Mara smiled, not because she'd won him back, but because she'd found herself first.
Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to like and subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment. It means a lot to me.